under consideration. I'm wondering if some of them up though, I'd be happy to quit it for considerably less than $18,000. Apparently that was advised. So anyway, Richard Avery, I did not see again. So we're going to go right ahead to that raffle that you earlier. So Tommy, if we cut that up. And there is, I always mention we back. So there's some special instructions today after the regular raffle. So pay attention.
And Richard did forward me some information about his notes today, so I'll share those as well while we're here. So if you were looking to hear from Richard Avery,
Thank you.
it says, service project is this Saturday, the 22nd. It's okay, we'll let you take your phone out and put that in if you need to. Saturday, the 22nd, it's a stream cleanup from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So quick lift, 2 hours, get it done. So please do put that on your calendar. If you have questions about it, please reach out to Richard or shoot him an email, or I think Linda has most of that information. Speaking of raffles, so next week, we do have an item or two that went unbid at the auction, and we're going to auction and raffle next week. So please do come over here, take a little bit of a preview, see the basket to the far left, is the one we're talking about, and John Cates may have some other special items to auction off as well. So we'll take a look at those, but check that out. Come with us next week, we see if we can shake the trees. And today's a bit of a light raffle following our big fundraiser. We've still got some money to give away. So you are ticket number 825360. 825360. Well, that goes. Congratulations. Very good. President, back to you.
All right, anytime. Congratulations.
Oh, happy dollars.
Okay, so we have our happy dollars time, and Harrison will be back up to do that. And while he's coming here to grab our microphone, if you would, remember on your tables are the little red buckets for the Dementia Alliance. Drop some bills in there and help that program. We present them with a check each year. So happy dollars, Harrison.
All right. Do we have some happy dollars out there? Any happy dollars? I got started. So I got 5 happy dollars. Many things. One, an amazing gala. Thank you for all being there. Number 2, while we're at the amazing gala, the amazing Duke Blue Devils took care of business. And number 3, sorry, everyone. And number 3, for me on a personal level, this past grade, I was informed that I was accepted into Stony Year's graduate school of banking. So I'm going to be at the University of Pennsylvania. So I'll be but yeah, $5 per day. Any more happy dollars? Oh.
My happy dollars are for Michigan State Spartans that's dominated Michigan again yesterday. And also won the Big Tech Championship for the 11th time in Izzo's career, historic season, big time Michigan State Spartans.
Spartans. Pete.
On behalf of my wife, she said she was very happy that I did not dance at the gala.
My wife might want to guess me, she left the gala. Any other happy dollars for today? All right. Back to you.
I didn't know if Kevin had a rebuttal. No, I don't comment.
All right, thank you, Harrison. And we have a lot of birthdays this week coming up. And so we have Terry Reeves, who is on vacation right now. Daniel has a birthday coming up in a few days. Lori Fuller with Smith Anderson. Let's see, Sean Doyle, Bert Haywood, Matt Barfield, Elsa Silverman, Park Livingston, Jennifer Rodriguez, sorry, Jennifer, yeah. And Kurt Warner, 55. Yeah, Kurt. Happy birthday. And we have no anniversaries this week. We do have some great upcoming programs. We have an amazing program about to hear about in just a few minutes. But then we have Sarah Hall, who's the director of the Institute for Virtual Issues, a very prominent institute at Cincinnati, that nationally recognized, globally recognized one. And then we have Rob Christensen, well-known writer, reporter, genius relative to the politics of North Carolina. He's going to talk about Southern news, Southern politics. And there's a lot of the names and the founders of the News Observer. We have Dr. Marianne Wolf of the Public School Forum coming. And then we have 2 AI presentations coming. We're going to have our AI starter presentation, we call it. And then late breaking news, we are going to have either the president of the UNC system, Peter Hans, or one of his direct reports that Peter's trying to work a schedule so that he can be here on Monday, Travis. But either Peter Hans, the president of UNC, or one of his direct reports that he's going to be doing. And then I got a soft agreement that I think is going to happen that will have the governor of the state of North Carolina as well. So I'm working with the folks there on that. So not a week to miss program. And this week is no week to miss your program either, because we have a great speaker this week. I have frankly been looking forward to this almost as much as Tony. I was facing her, so was just agree. But since I've been reading Heather's work for a long time, and then since meeting Heather via email, I've been really excited about this. Let me check. Who remembers Basilian's Steakhouse that was inside the North Hills Mall years ago? Or opposite end of the days. I Am Steakhouse. A lot of people don't know that was there. And then halfway back to the mall was a little place called Scotty's Chutway. You better remember that one. Yeah, okay. Good burgers there. Yeah. And then what about the Cameron Village Subway? Yeah, a lot of people remember that. There was a bookstore down there, and there were lots of clubs and things. There was one famous club called the Frog and Nightgown, where you could go and listen perhaps to Fiona Simone or to Carol Simone, nationally, worldwide known performer. I was there and saw Major Ferguson and his group perform live at that. It was amazing. I might have like that as well. And then there's the Village movie theater in Cameron Village was also there. When you walk in, it was like somebody's living room. And generally, when you walk in, there'd be people dressed in suits and dresses. Maybe sitting on the couch waiting for movies to switch. And maybe sitting there smoking their cigarettes and boards and having a light conversation. So a lot of things in Raleigh's history. Well, there's modern history. Heather has been writing about Raleigh's history for WRAL for a while. She puts videos on that. She speaks extensively on that. So Heather is a 5th generation Raleighite and a professional historian. She explores a history that's often found in outside the mainstream history books for nearly a decade of uncovered hidden history. She's dug through the state archives, explored underground tunnels, secret places, interviewed long-time Raleigheites for oral histories, and brought the photos and stories to you. So she's going to tell us about some of the hidden secrets of Raleigh. Heather has become a favorite resource of mine. I play a game, see if you can stump Heather. So far, I have not been able to. For example, I think I shared this with the club before. I said, Heather, is there a lead mine on Lead Mine Road? She says, yes, there is, and I'll tell you where it is. So please, let's Rotary Rotary welcome Heather.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'll have to learn how to use the clicker, so forgive me if I go the wrong way for a minute. So as I've been sitting in here, I've actually been staring at this. I'm sure it's nothing, but whenever I see things like that in old buildings, I immediately imagine a secret door. And sometimes I'm right. I definitely have been right before, and you'll see it in one of these, they actually broke down a wall and found a hidden door behind it, and there was a speakeasy from the 1920s, just sealed away, neat as you please, covered in dust. But we'll get there. But that's just how my brain works, which is probably why I'm wrong way. All right, I got it. All right, so first of all, I'd like to get an idea of my audience. How many of you have lived in Raleigh for over 20 years? Okay, over 30, 40?
No.
50?
Over 20 years.
100. So some of you who've been here a while may be aware of some of this. Some of you may even remember some of these places, depending on how far back we go. But I bet none of you have been here, because it was gone by the 1920s. So, who in here has heard of Bloomsbury Park? So some of you are going to be familiar with this right here, but for those of you who haven't heard of it, I bet it's hard to imagine when you're driving down Glenwood Avenue today, but there used to be a roller coaster theme park sitting on Glenwood Avenue. Now Glenwood Avenue didn't look like it did today. It was a dirt road. I've seen the old pictures of Glenwood. It doesn't look anything like Glenwood. It's a dirt road, and people would go down in the horse and wagons. In the 19-teens, CP&L had a trolley system. In fact, if you dig up Glenwood Avenue, probably even right up here, to be honest with you, the trolley tracks are still over there. I was fortunate to get to see them myself a couple of summers ago when they were doing road work. They said, "How did you see the trolley tracks? We found some." Everyone see. So CP&L had this trolley system running down Glenwood, and there was another trolley that ran down Hillsborough Street and Fayetteville Street. So the trolley tracks are still down there today, and in order to encourage people to go on the trolley on the weekends, you would use it during the week to get to and from work, right? But if you wanted people to go on the weekends, you built a trolley park. These were pretty popular in that time period. Let me know if the audio was bad. I talk really loud, actually, I'm trying to blow you out. So these were really popular at the time. And this was the one we had on the Bloomsbury Park. This is what it looked like. Another picture of it coming up. Click.
I'll get it.
Okay,
Hold on, I'll get it.
there we go. All right, there's the roller coaster right there. Now I know my great grandmother used to go courting here. And I actually found that out in a history book. She didn't tell me herself, I never met her, but in a history book, I found her name and it turned out she loves it. We can go on dates here. So Bloomsbury Park had this big roller coaster, a rickety kind of wood roller coaster. It had a carousel, which you can see in the background there, and that was the first picture of the carousel. There was a lake that the people would promenade around the lake. You can see people would really get dressed up. Look at all the kids here. And they're dressed pretty nice to go to the park. There's a lady right up there standing under the coaster. I wish I had a pointer, but she's got a little hat on, and she's got her white dress and her skirt. That's right, there she is. Thank you. And yeah, this was a really popular place to come on.
Where was it?
Oh,
5 points?
we're gonna, yes, it's near 5 points. We're actually not gonna get there. It's a good question. So it also had a dance pavilion. You're reading my mind, you know where I'm going. It had a dance pavilion, and they had bands come out and play, and it's just a really popular place. Oh, and it had 17,000 electric lights. And that was literally in the newspapers. The electric lights were really exciting, big deal. Okay. I guess I did. Okay. This is actually, who recognizes this? It's Glenwood Avenue. And that's the trolley. Look at the like one pin growing on the side of it. And that is the trolley, and those are the trolley tracks that are leading. This is part of what's left of Bloomsbury Park today. So actually, this house is now gone. Even this isn't left anymore. This was a couple of years ago. Even this is gone. In fact, there were several remnants of Bloomsbury Park in this neighborhood. This is Scotland Drive, I believe is there. it is near 5 Points. There's a neighborhood, the country club is there, Carolina Country Club. That was where the area where Bloomsbury Park was. And historians debated on where the park stood, they weren't sure. But we were able to pinpoint certain things that once belonged to the park and line it up with the maps and actually figure out where the park stood. So this was the trolley platform where the trolley would stop. So this isn't someone's yard. And you wouldn't know what it is just driving by. But this person's yard, it's an old neighborhood, right? It's classic houses from maybe the 1950s, 40s. And anyway, that's brick wall and this weird concrete platform in the middle of this person's yard that's covered in ivy right now. But that was actually where the trolley would stop and let people walk. Unfortunately, this has been destroyed. They're building something out there now. They tore down the house and they tore down a lot of the houses on that street and built this a big modern thing. Does anybody recognize it? Okay. Does anybody know what it is? It's not stuff. Okay. It is. When I was a kid, I saw this and I always thought that it was a rich person's bus stop. That's where the rich people stand to wait for the bus. It's got to be covering. This is in fact one of the last remaining pieces of the trolley system that went through Raleigh. It's on Lowood Avenue. So if you ever drive past it, that's what it is. This was the last stop before getting to Bloomsbury Park. And if you continue going down Glenwood, you might know a road called the Circle. I always wondered what's the point of this weird road. It just kind of goes out and comes back. Well, that was where the trolley would turn around if it needed to. That's what the circle is. It's where the trolley would circle, right? This is a ruin of Bloomsbury Park, also been torn down recently. Very sad. This was the dance pavilion. It was in someone's backyard. You can tell it's pretty much unrecognizable. The house that was in the front yard is on Transylvania Avenue. It was that NC State Matsumoto house. It was moved recently. So they did save the historic home, but I believe this has been torn up now. There is, however, so we did have some remnants of Bloomsbury Park, but even those have been kind of getting torn down as developers through more recently. However, there is one piece of Bloomsbury Park that's still in action today. You can even go and ride on it. Does anybody have a guess what that might be? Carousel got moved to Woodland Park. So that carousel, we all know it's a very historic carousel. Well, this is who got it first. And in fact, I did know my great grandmother used to ride it. So like, I really wish I could ask her like which animal was her favorite one, right? All right, Deborah Meadow. This is a little bit more recent, right? So this was built in the 30s. And it wasn't torn down until I think the 70s. So some people may remember this. Does anybody remember it? My grandmother actually used to go to games at Deborah Meadow. She lived in Raleigh for 92 years, her whole life. She couldn't tell me much about it because she went with like her dad and brothers, but I don't think she cared about it as much. She was growing up. But this is the baseball stadium. It was a minor league baseball stadium, but it was big. We're grander than like the Durham Bulls, the old Durham Bulls stadium up in New. And at the time, baseball was really popular. It was all over North Carolina. Every town would have their own baseball team, and they would rival each other, right? And in fact, here in Raleigh, we had, depending on the time period, the Raleigh Cardinals, the Raleigh Capitals. There were different names that we went by. But we were I'm not a sports expert, okay? The seed team for the Red Sox. Is that what it's called? Where they pull players from.
Triple A.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I can never pronounce his name, but yes, it's Kripke. Play here. Yes, is what I call him. Yes. So major league players came from our little team right here at Raleigh. And in fact, this stadium, you can see in the back there, that back row. So in trying to figure out where the stadium once stood, I looked at this picture and you can see in the background, way back there, you can see the old cotton mill that are now apartments. Almost there. Look a little bit to the left. Right there. That's the old cotton mill. So you look at that and you have to figure out where this used to stand. The wall there full of like ads, that was based on a similar wall that was at the Red Sox Stadium. This stadium, look at it, this was such a popular pastime in Raleigh. I believe I read that this could hold a third of the city's population at the time. So this was a really big stadium, it was a really big deal. And this is always the question I ask, if this was such a big deal and such an important place, why is it not only gone, but like forgotten, right? The next generation doesn't even know what Deborah was, right? This is what it looks like today. It may look different now. I know they're developing in that area too. And I will tell you, there's somewhat of a happy ending to this one. So they eventually tore down the stadium in the 70s. Baseball became a little bit less popular. Oh, I do remember being told that all the kids love to go to baseball games. It was very different than today, because during the middle of the game, they would call kids out on the field, and they would have to have them catch a buttered hog. And if you could catch and wrangle the buttered hog, you could win a pony or a TV. I can't imagine what my mom would do if I won a pony and won. Yes.
Back up to,
Yeah. Yeah.
you explain the left field, all the way to, was the light pole. Then I know where the rule was. Students back, but look pretty treacherous, it's like a light pole.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, it's a good point. And yes, by the way, please do raise your hand and ask questions and make comments. I love, absolutely, tell me your thoughts while we're going. But I don't know the answer to that, that does look very treacherous. This was the wrong way again, right now. This is what it looks like today. So this row here, this crumbling wall, I saw that one day while walking through downtown, and I said, what is that? It looks very intentional. It must belong to something. We eventually figured out that is the wall that the stadium seating sat on. So you can see that the hill goes like starkly upwards. It's very strange, right? We're in the middle of downtown, everything's flat, and then there's just this hill and a wall holding it up. That's where these people were sitting. They're sitting on that hillside. And if you look at the wall closely, there's actually like rebar coming out, like little iron sticks, and that was what would hold the stadium seating there. The pathway here was just kind of the front where the kids would walk down and maybe go buy some popcorn or come into the stadium. And just another kind of look at it. There's also another, I found this while I was out there. This was very exciting to me. This is a toilet. When I found this, I was out there exploring with my husband and I got really excited. And he's like, what? And he just didn't understand why that was so exciting. But it proved that this purpose was the stadium, because look, there's part of the toilet, but it also showed us that that was indeed the seating, and then the bathrooms would have been right under the seating. And so we were kind of determined where everything would have been based on findings. This also runs through the former Deborah Meadow. I think I have another picture of it too. Extending there, here we go. This tunnel. So this is one of the first underground tunnels that I did. I've done a lot since then. I found this, I said, what is this? So this is it's like a culvert. And it's where they put the Pigeon House Ranch River underground. Or tributary. Basically, downtown Raleigh used to have a waterway that went through it, which I think is so cool. But we dug it and we put it underground, and now it's under these tunnels. You can follow these tunnels, I think, all the way down to modern day Village District. They go right under East Street. Yeah.
So, a couple years ago, we were talking about plans to redevelop the area. We were
talking about, and you're learning that really to be a water picture that you know what the fun thing that I do. Yes, yes, you are also reading my mind. Yes, so back in the 1800s, this was called Deborah Meadow, and it literally was a meadow, and it had a stream going through it, and the churches would come and have their potato salad picnics out there. And then we bury the waterway, we build a baseball field, we call the baseball field Deborah Meadow, but no one remembers the original meadow. And no one remembers the original waterway. Now, the city wants to go to park, and they actually want to bring the waterway back, and they are planning to create a, like a water feature, you can walk, a river walk, we can walk beside the river. I believe they're trying to keep the tunnel intact if they can, but they still want to bring the river back. And they're trying to preserve as much of the baseball stadium history as they can while creating an urban park in downtown. So it's an interesting piece of history where we've come full circle, and it's gonna become a meadow again, a park again, with a river walk once again. Yes.
You know, is that the same stream that they're talking about, like creating more of a water feature at Diggs Park further down?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm gonna guess no. This is Pigeon House Branch, so I guess the question would be what water is down there by Diggs Park. But I don't think this is, I don't think this stretches that far. But I could be wrong. Here's just another picture of where there's the rebar poking out the top. Me inside the tunnel, just that I didn't keep going. St. Agnes Hospital. I'm gonna try to go quickly because I could go 2 or 3 hours on this program, and I want to try and do as much as I can. So I'm gonna try to move quickly. And please flag me when it's time. St. Agnes Hospital. Who's familiar with St. Agnes? You've seen it before. Okay. I did not know this was here. This is still standing today. It looks different. It's right beside Oakwood Cemetery. Well, my grandmother was buried there, my grandfather was buried there. I went there every single holiday growing up. And to visit my family who was buried there. And I had never seen this. I didn't know it was there. It's just on the corner, and you can't miss it once you see it. But this is how history gets hidden. Here's what it looks like today. So this was a hospital. This was built in the early 1900s. And it was literally built by students, college students and high school students who wanted so desperately to learn. They had such a hunger for education that they were willing to build their own building to learn it. When I present for kids today and I go to schools, I ask them, who here loves school so much that you would build your own school, brick by brick, just to go learn it? I don't get many hands. This building today, literally you can see the bottom floor is gone, all the floors are gone, it's hollow. And it doesn't have a roof either. The windows are gone, they're just big open gaps. You can no longer walk in the front door, because you would just fall, because there's no floor. To get inside, you have to go into the basement windows. And that's what I've done here. So I'm standing in the basement floor and looking all the way up. And you can see this building literally has trees growing inside the building today. It's beautiful in its own way. It's sad in the lost history, but it's beautiful in its own way to look at it. This history was very important to a very specific portion of Raleigh in the early 1900s, all the way to the 1960s. So you can see this is what it looks like inside. This is a hospital. Just take that in when you look at it. It does not look like a hospital. St. Agnes was built by, so okay, the 1860s, late 60s, Civil War ends, right, mid-60s, emancipation. There were about 2,000 people who had been enslaved right here in Raleigh. And they had nowhere to go, they had nowhere to learn, they had nowhere to get medical care. They didn't have jobs or money in homes. And so, 2,000 people who are suddenly free have to work really hard to build up a community where they can have access to all of these things. They built 13 freedmen's villages around Raleigh. So the whole city was circled with these 13 villages. Today, only 2 of those villages remain. Very important, vital pieces of Black history. Unfortunately, we lost a lot of them during World War II. They also built this hospital. So this is part of St. Augustine's campus. Another important piece of history that is kind of hanging right now. We're not sure what's going to happen, right, with St. Augustine's. The students of St. Augustine's built this because there was no place, if you were Black, to get healthcare. And so they built this hospital, and there also was no way to learn how to become a doctor because the white doctors aren't going to teach you. So the students built their own hospital where they can learn and where they can provide care. And St. Agnes Hospital provided the highest quality care for the Black community for anywhere between New Orleans and Washington, D.C. I asked Linda Dallas, she's one of the historians and professors at St. Augustine's University. I said, well, what would happen if you were like, say, Wilmington, and you were like having a heart attack and you're Black and you go to a hospital that is segregated, that's white? And she said, no, they'd let you die out there. They wouldn't let you in. So this was vitally important because it provided a way to not only have healthcare, but have education to become doctors and nurses. Here's inside the building today. So you think, another really good shot, really see the walls and each of these windows is probably a room, right? A hospital room. So what happened? This was an important piece of Raleigh history, and it has been kind of left to decay. There's been several attempts to save it, to put money into it, to preserve it in some way, and things kind of keep happening each time. And of course, now St. Augustine's is, we're not sure about the future of St. Augustine's. So we're not sure exactly what will end up happening with St. Agnes. And a lot of people don't even know that it's there. This is me crawling inside it. I just wanted you to get a view of how you get into the building now. I was allowed to go into the building, by the way. I don't ever just crawl around the buildings without permission. They wanted me to come and do so. Heck Andrew's house. This is a good example of history that has been saved and preserved. Here's what it used to look like. It seriously looks like a horror movie. My grandma used to say it looked like, what's that TV show? Dark Shadows. She said Barnabas lives there. If you're familiar with that show. And then here's what it looks like today. I'm gonna flip through this one quickly because we've got really interesting things to get to, but here's what it looks like inside. For a long time, that house was just falling apart. And it's a good example of how history gets lost. Because what happened is the woman who lived inside, she got older, she lived alone, she didn't have family, she couldn't care for the home anymore. This one goes back to the mid-1800s. And at the time, it was a wealthy family with like 12 children. It's a huge house inside, hardwood floors, mirrors on the walls. Like the walls are actually mirrors. Beautiful inside. It's got that tower and that catwalk. Beautiful piece of history. But slowly that family dwindles and dwindles until you've got one person left and she can't care for it anymore. And the state determined they wanted her house. So I've been told by state employees in modern times that the state basically came in and said, well, you can't care for yourself anymore. So we're going to take you and put you in a facility and take you out of your home, and we're going to buy your house from you, even if you don't want us to do that. So they did, and the state was going to use it, but then they decided not to use it, and so for a long time it just fell apart on the side of Blunt Street, and you just couldn't go inside. Eventually, some preservation work was done on it, and now a real estate company gets in. But this is what it looked like at the time. I'm on the top floor here, looking down to the bottom floor. Everything's broken inside. It just had not been cared for, given the love it deserved. But it has been preserved in recent years. Raleigh Speedway. Does anybody remember the Raleigh Speedway? This is kind of old, so maybe not. Okay. This was only around for like maybe 10 years. Back when NASCAR was really popular. So, okay, we have a NASCAR speedway hidden right off of like Atlantic Avenue in Raleigh. It's in the woods. There's your starting point. And there was a time when Charlotte was not a part of NASCAR, and Raleigh was looked like it was going to be part of NASCAR. By the way, now there are abandoned NASCAR speedways, just like little ghost speedways, like footprints across the state. They're all over the place. There's another one in the woods out by the River, very well preserved. This, yep, Okanagan Speedway. This one's not as well preserved, but I was told that there's a speedway hidden in the woods. That's why we gotta go see that. This is what it looked like in its heyday. The Raleigh Speedway, you can see the sign up there. This was a very popular speedway. Popular NASCAR drivers drove on this speedway. There were crashes, and I think Flaco Jocko rode here, and he had like a monkey. Maybe that was the monkey. Not a NASCAR expert. These are some pictures of what it looked like. And so I saw this. I love aerial maps because they let me find the hidden stuff, right? You go, oh, wait a minute, that looks interesting. I wonder what stands there now. So it looks different today, but this is what it looked like probably in like 70s. So the speedway eventually closed down. It was really close to Brentwood. Brentwood didn't like, the neighborhood Brentwood didn't like that NASCAR was speeding around on Sundays, but they were trying to like have church days and worship days. And eventually, they just decided that this was not a speedway that was going to work. Other speedways continued to grow. But because the speedway was abandoned out there, people would go out there. I think my dad went out there, they'd ride their cars around or their bikes around, and they'd ride around on the speedway. So eventually they went out there and they like dug pivots in the speedway to try to prevent people from racing around out there. And now this is pretty much all that's left. I was told there's a 100-yard stretch of track in the woods out there. And I said, okay, that should be pretty easy to find. About the woods, and I'm see any track, there's just trees everywhere. But they aren't kind of skinny trees, so they're newer trees. And then I noticed all the trees had like asphalt, like this little rock here, surrounding every single tree had the same asphalt around it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm on the track. And the trees punched up through the asphalt, and we're literally standing on the track. But you're in the woods, and you would just never know. If you want to see a more complete track, this is pretty much all that's left out here. Okanagan Speedway, which is not in this one because it's not Raleigh history. That one is like the whole, the speedway is out, right? You go on the grandstands and see the old cars rusting in the woods. If you want to go find something cool, that's a fun adventure. All right, Jordan Lake. Okay. This was not as well known maybe 5 years ago, but I am curious today, how many people know that there's like a ghost town? No. Actually, a lot of lakes that are man-made have communities underneath them. And in fact, a little club here, I'm writing a book right now. It's on ghost towns and lost communities in North Carolina. And there's a whole chapter on all these lakes with towns hidden underneath them. And a lot of these lakes were created with using eminent domain. Okay, so you've got farming communities that maybe don't have the money to fight that legally. And the government decides for whatever reason, this is the land that they need. And the farmers are forced to leave their homes. And many of the homes are either torn down or just flooded out. Jordan Lake is one of those lakes. Now, Jordan Lake did need to be created, and there's a lot of discussion as to both sides of the opinions on this, right? But the history of it is Jordan Lake used to be the New Hope Valley. And this valley was this difficult terrain that people couldn't cross. And if you were coming in a settler from the coast, this is really where you had to stop, where Jordan Lake is today. This was a valley, and it was impassable, you'd have to go around it. So a lot of settlers couldn't cross until like after the 1600s. That's why places like Raleigh, you don't see getting settled until like 1700s. It's too hard to get over here. But then one day, this really lucky farmer inherited land on both sides of the valley. And there was just no way for him to manage land on two sides of this valley that he can't cross. You have to go all the way up and around just to like, go visit your mom on your own property. So he built a bridge and a tavern, and he ended up very wealthy because people would pay him to use that bridge and that tavern. This is sort of what it looked like when they were forming Jordan Lake. Whole communities got buried under the lake. And I don't have the pictures of this, because they're newer, but this past summer, we had like a drought. And the water level dropped so low for Jordan Lake that you could see the foundations underneath the lake. And I walked on the old US 64 that is under the lake. So there's lots down there still today. This is one of the roads that I was standing on that goes out into the lake and then just vanishes under the water. So I wanted to walk out and get some photos. Here's another picture of it. This is just an example of the road I'm standing on. You can see that it goes into the woods and then it just disappears into the lake and reappears on the other side. 10 minutes. Yes.
I'm talking about a long-
It's possible some are, but a lot of people use these roads as boat ramps. Yeah. Yes, probably a lot of the places that seem to be boat ramps are actually the old roads. Yeah. And Falls Lake, same deal. There's a whole community called Heritage that is buried under that lake. It's a whole other story I don't have time for today, but there's another lake up in the mountains that's got a whole town over there. Lake Norman has a whole mill village under there, and some of those buildings are still standing just under the lake. Raleigh Municipal Airport. I'm gonna go through this one quickly because there's a really cool one on the other side of this. This is the first airport Raleigh for RDU. I don't think anyone probably remembers this, but does anybody know about this airport? Okay. Some air fans maybe know this history. So there was this entire airport. By the way, I was mentioned to by Aaron, and it's not in this, I should add it. There's an entire university that got lost in downtown Raleigh too. It's a whole university that had tons of students. It was a great university, and it's gone and no one even remembers it anymore. This is how history just gets completely lost, right? It's torn down and completely forgotten by the next generation. So here's an airport that's been completely torn down. For a while, there were ruins of it. Oh, this is, here's the, it might be covered by what, oh, there it is. So right there, you see that arrow pointing down. It's on a rooftop in downtown Raleigh. I wondered what that arrow was. That arrow was pointing pilots to Raleigh Municipal Airport. And that arrow, I believe, is still on the rooftop. It is, yeah, that's what it is. This is the airport runways. You can see them making crisscross patterns. This was a very bustling airport. Amelia Airport actually landed here and took off from here. And then they did this was very, there was I believe there was tell me if I'm wrong, it's been a while. I think there was an Air Force training or some kind of camp out here as well. I do know they taught them to fly. This was a very bustling airport. And how many of you have even heard of it, right? It was almost not a name. It'd be like if RDU got torn down and a generation later, no one was there. Here we go, this is it. You are reading my mind. Renaissance Park. So this is the neighborhood. So these people don't even know they're living on like airport runways. I ended up finding a piece of runway using Google Maps satellite from above. And I said, oh, look at that. There's a piece of the runway still out there. Unfortunately, every bit of this airport's been destroyed now because they built some apartments out there in the past couple of years. But the apartments do try to honor the legacy of the airport, and they have a lot of history on the airport in the apartment buildings. But this was the runway. I was standing on it. There was a lot of, this is also the runway. There was chunks of runway out there, asphalt things that you can find out there. Little pieces of it, overgrown remnants of the buildings that were part of the airport. The old Mill Road. Most of you heard of Mill Road, right? Okay. Have you heard of Mill Road Village? Yeah, some of you. I grew up near Mill Road Village. In fact, there's a gentleman who's like almost 100 years old. And if you look at Google Maps from above, you can see all of this development, parking lots, malls, shopping centers, and then just a grassy farm in the middle of North Raleigh, like what's Midtown Raleigh now. Where there shouldn't be a big grassy farm. It's because a gentleman has lived there for like 100 years. And his name is Jack Norwood, and if you talk to him, he doesn't reckon he lives in Raleigh, he lives in Millbrook, because that's what it was when he started living there. He was born. This is the Millbrook Mill. This is what Millbrook was named after. So I always figured, if you look at street names, they'll tell you a lot about history, right? Millbrook. Well, there's probably a mill somewhere on the brook that runs through this area, because that's how they named things back then. Chapel Hill was named Chapel Hill because it was the hill that the chapel was on. They were that's the Chapel Hill there, right? This was where Apex was named Apex because it was at the top of the railroad line. It was at the Apex. And before it was Apex, it was called Log Pond, because there was a pond with logs in it. And the train conductors would pull the logs out and use them to burn for fuel for their trains. And eventually it changed to Apex. I'm sure Apex is glad to not be Log Pond. So I figure there's probably a mill and a brook around here. Northridge has a ton of road names that are based on the mills and things that used to be on that land. So anyway, I eventually found out from talking with the church members and hearsay and legend that there was indeed this old remnant of a mill in someone's backyard. And we were able to figure out that that was indeed the old Millbrook. Here it is. You can climb around on it. The kids in the neighborhood used to play on it. It's got a big flat rock, right where the mill pond used to be. You can walk on top of the wall. You can see where the mill was. All right, this is the last one. I'm trying to get through it quick for you. Secret underground speakeasy. This is the one I promised you with the hidden door. Okay, so I had long heard legend. Underneath Fayetteville Street, there's a speakeasy, 1920s. It's hidden. That I had never seen any, never any evidence, pictures, nothing in history books, just nothing. So I didn't know if it was true. But of course it would be secretive, right? Because it's a speakeasy. So back in the 1920s, so now today, it looks very unassuming. It's just a senior living community, like an apartment, Sir Walter. Well, it used to be that that was a hotel, a grand old hotel, and all of the wealthiest people, most influential people would stay there, and they would go down the street, and they'd stay in the hotel. Yeah, alcohol is illegal, but not for them. So they're gonna go downstairs into this speakeasy that's under the hotel, and they're gonna have a drink. And these speakeasies and before speakeasies, taverns, well, maybe you wouldn't be shocked. I was shocked to find out how much of our legal system is based on a bunch of people getting drunk and talking about what they want to do before they officially do it. These taverns and speakeasies were a big part of our political history. I mean, Raleigh is literally here because of Isaac Burns taverns. They picked this location because it was near their favorite tavern. So one day they're doing some renovations in the basement of the Sir Walter apartments. And they said, Heather, we broke down the drywall and found a door. Do you want to come look at it? Absolutely. So we go look at it, and this is what's inside. Old bar, got a beer thing. I would be clear, it was built in the 1920s. It was not sealed up until the 70s. So if you see something in here that looks like it's from the 1970s, you go, Heather, I will taught you it's not from the 20s, as people have done. And yes, you're right. It was open until the 70s. So there are things in here that are from the 20s. But here's what's in there. I mean, seating covered in dust, no electricity, completely dark. I have any light you see is my flashlight or my flashlight phone. Here's what it looks like. That's a mirror in the background, not the window to the daylight. Kid asked me, he said, that's the sunshine. I said, no, it's my flash in a mirror. But this is, look at the dust. Decades of dust. So it was eventually sealed up. And then they happened to find it during renovations. And that's why when I see these things here, I go, that secret door. There's a theater in Sanford. I went there to do a hidden history on the theater, Temple Theater. And there are secret doors there. They showed me, you open little breaks in the wall and there's a whole room inside that they've just sealed up. So anyway, Oh, this is the village subway that, Eric was talking about at the beginning. Thank you so much for all of your time today. I will, you can find my work, a lot of it is on wrl.com/hiddenhistory, that's like 5 years of work there. But I also have a new website, hiddenhistorian.com, so I'm trying to do more hidden history on that website and build up, a presence on YouTube and start doing a lot more video type content, so, be sure to check out there as well, and I'll have a book coming out in about 6 months. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now you can see why I was so excited. It was just awesome. And who learned something they thought that you learned something. You never did learn something. So Heather, thank you so much. We want to give you our Rotary Club of Raleigh mug, but probably more importantly for you, at our 100th anniversary, we created a history book, so I'm happy to give you a history of the Rotary Club of Raleigh. I suspect that can keep you busy for quite a while. And can you stay around for a few minutes for questions?
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So Rotarians, let's finish with the 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth?
They're almost.
This,
Yeah, you can take those upstairs.
You know, you can't just that.
There's only so much of it I can handle. Let me end this, huh? Yes.